back to the Lost Cause Ranch. Today we got the 10,000 mile check-in on the Budget LR4. And we'll see if it's something I regret buying or not. That is right, it is hard to believe, but we have had our Budget Overland LR4 for a year and a half and 10,000 miles. We're up here with it on the little Rover test trails. It's a little tight for a full-size LR4 with the roof tent on top. We're able to get some pinstripes on the guy today. So as most of you know, we've had a ton of LR3s, LR4s. We used to sell them and service them. What made me land on keeping this silver one here? This is a 2010. When this guy came through our shop, it had 86,000 miles on it. Why did we keep this one over any other LR4 or even an LR3, which would have been a little more budget? Well, this guy is in the most unique color you can possibly get a car. Yes, silver. No, that is not why. This one happens to have the luxury package, which gives you a little nicer leather because you need that on your seats. But on top of the luxury package, we have the HD package, which gives us not only the center locking differential that all the LR4s have, we have a rear locker as well. So instead of two-wheel drive, we have the capability of having three-wheel drive, which coming up these muddy hills is awful nice when both those rear tires spin. They command a little more premium, but I always suggest if you can find one, get yourself an LR3, LR4 with the HD package and get yourself a rear locking differential done via electronics. The ions go across and connect it all. That's how it's done. You know, we have put 10,000 miles on this guy, and we're gonna see what that 10,000 miles has cost us. More than you think, but expected. I acquired this guy at probably the most inopportune time to buy a Land Rover. Right in that middle mile range, 86,000 miles. At that mileage range, there's a lot of times you're left holding their grenade, especially on these early 5 liters. If it had more miles, the previous owner probably would have already addressed the issues we had to address. So right when we purchased this guy, it was running a skosh rough. We took care of that with some spark plugs and an O2 sensor. Not a big deal. A little bit down the road, we got the 5-liter rattle, tinky tink. Never a good sign. We had to dive in and do timing chains, which is every 5-liter Land Rover owner's nightmare. Thankfully, we're well versed in these guys, and the labor is cheap. I mean, I don't cost much. So 6,000 miles into owning this guy, we did complete timing chains, guides, tensioners. Also did the water pump and coolant pipes. A while you're in there type of deal, you might as well do it. We also replaced front control arms, which is a very common thing at about 100,000 miles on most LR3, LR4s. You can expect to do those every 60 to 100,000 miles. But outside of that major service, we've had no issues. Going into buying a 100,000-ish mile LR4, if it has not had chains done, expect it and budget it in, and it won't upset you. But the good news is, now that we got that major ticket item out of the way, this thing's good to go. Knock on wood. But no, that's the big scary item on LR4s. And now I don't have the timing chains looming over my head. I can just enjoy this thing. It was factored into the purchase. I knew we were gonna have to do chains. So outside of all the maintenance stuff, which isn't even that long of a list, we did a couple minor modifications that turned this into a completely different vehicle. One of them, you can see right up here, we have the Amazon winch, and we used a Harbor Freight winch plate and modified that, and we have a nice little hidden winch. Nothing obtrusive or obnoxious for what essentially is my daily driver, street-driven vehicle. I didn't want a big steel ARB bumper on the front of this. I like that clean hidden winch look on the factory bumper. We also did a Proud Rhino 2.5-inch lift rod from Lucky 8 to give this guy a little more ground clearance. And then we have Terra Firma steel wheels with some 275/65/18 General Grabber ATXs. These are an aggressive all-terrain, not a mud train, like I said, street driven, not going anywhere crazy. We added a 100-watt Rhenology solar panel tied into the factory battery and a Rough Country rooftop tent on a $300 roof rack. It is a budget build after all. And inside the back here, we built out a simple slide out kitchen with a Rough Country 12-volt refrigerator, hence the 100-watt solar panel that powers that guy. Overall, those few things paired great to make this an awesome little overlanding light camping rig that I can still daily drive every single day. It's my mall crawler. Which brings us to the usefulness of the LR3, LR4. We have fold flat seating on all 3 rows. Yes, it is a 3-row vehicle without having to be the size of a Suburban. And that squared off rear allows us a lot of cargo room. As you saw in the shop build, it hauls 10-foot conduit inside there. So for the relatively small size of an LR4 compared to these large American SUVs, this thing is super useful, and that is part of the reason why I just can't get past having an LR3 or an LR4 in the fleet at any given time. Plus, can you beat how good that classic boxy Land Rover shape looks? The LR4 was truly at the end of an era for Land Rover. The Discovery 5, a little too roundy for me. I like straight lines. Picked up a straggler. So in total, we spent $1,870 in parts cost on our maintenance. That's timing chains, control arms, water pump, coolant pipes. What else do we do? Spark plugs, oil change, and O2 sensor. Like I said earlier, my time's not worth a lot, so labor was free. If you had to pay a shop, I would expect that bill would be somewhere between $6,500 and $10,000. But you have the main ticking time bomb done in your LR4 then. Don't have to worry about timing chains anymore. The parts cost on our modifications was $4,665. We got a lot done for under $5 grand. So in total, 10,000 miles in, we have spent $6,535. Ouch. After 15 years of being in the car business and selling hundreds and hundreds of different cars, I've landed on the LR4 as being my ideal package. Plenty of space and usability without being massive like a lot of the American SUVs are these days. I like the boxy style. The on and off-road performance is pretty nice, especially when you get that HD package. You pair that with the terrain response modes and the adjustable air suspension. Give it a little bit of a lift over top factory, a little more aggressive tire, and it is quite a different SUV altogether. Anything the average person's ever going to need off-road. And the 5-liter V8 with its 375 horsepower is no slouch. Quite a bit better than the 4.4 in the LR3, and that is my only complaint about the LR3. Especially when you put a little larger tire on it, you can kind of feel that they're a little doggy. So would I do it again knowing I was going to spend $6,600 modifying and repairing the LR4 in the first 10,000 miles of ownership? Yes, I would. I use this thing pretty much every day. Granted, the 10,000 miles in a year and a half doesn't quite show that. Gotta remember, I have like 20 Land Rovers. So 10,000 miles on one of them is quite a bit, even though half those Land Rovers don't run. Appreciate you guys watching. We'll catch you on the next one, which should involve this guy. So I ran across an online auction that had some steel pull-out bins that are stackable. Figured those guys would be perfect in the new shop. We'll refinish them. There'll be a nice little storage area. But at the auction, I also saw this guy. Sometimes things just need to follow you home.